Admiral Kim Dae-ho pressed his palm against the cold steel of the command bridge wall, feeling the vibrations of his dying world echo through the metal. The Phoenix Dawn shuddered as another massive explosion rocked Earth's surface below. Through the reinforced viewport, he watched the Vorthok planet-breaker ships descend like mechanical vultures, their hulls gleaming with an alien bronze that seemed to absorb light itself. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the surface," called out Communications Officer Eugene Su, his young face pale with exhaustion. They had been running evacuation operations for 72 hours straight, grabbing every human they could find from the burning cities below. "Put it through," Dae-ho replied, though he already knew what he would hear. The static-filled voice of Colonel Nam Hoseok crackled through the speakers. "Phoenix Dawn, this is ground command. Sydney is gone. The entire Australian continent just ... disappeared. The Vorthok are using some kind of molecular disintegrator beam. We estimate 6 hours before they finish with Asia." Dae-ho closed his eyes for a moment. 6 hours. That was all the time humanity had left on their ancestral home, understood Colonel. "How many survivors at your location? Maybe 300? Civilians in the underground bunkers. But Admiral ... The Colonel's voice broke slightly. "The Vorthok aren't just killing us. They're harvesting. I've seen them loading human bodies into their ships. They're collecting us like specimens." Commander Park Mir looked up from her tactical display, her usually perfect military composure cracking. "Sir, that confirms the intelligence reports. The Vorthok Empire sees organic life as inferior. They study us before they exterminate entire species." The bridge fell silent except for the constant hum of the ship's engines and the distant rumble of Earth's destruction. Through the viewport, they could see the Vorthok motherships hovering like dark clouds over the planet's surface. It was the size of a small city, their surfaces covered in what looked like living metal that pulsed with crimson energy. "Movement on the port side," announced Lieutenant Song Huyanwoo from the navigation station. "It's the Harmony's Edge with the final evacuation group." Dae-ho watched as the battered transport ship limped toward their position, its hull scarred by atmospheric debris and energy weapon strikes. The Harmony's Edge had been making round trips to the surface for the past 3 days, loading refugees from the underground shelters that had somehow survived the initial bombardment. "This is Captain Shin Tae-young of the Harmony's Edge," came the transmission. "We have 437 survivors aboard, mostly children and elderly. Pickup zones are completely overrun now. The Vorthok ground forces have deployed some kind of hunting robots." Park Murray coordinated the docking procedure, while Dae-ho stared at the tactical display showing their pathetic fleet. 12 ships total, ranging from military cruisers to hastily converted cargo vessels. The largest could hold maybe 8,000 people. The smallest barely managed 500. "Final count, Commander?" he asked quietly. 50,001. 112 souls, Admiral, Mireille reported, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. From a population of 8 billion, numbers hit him like a physical blow. 50,000 survivors from the entire human race. Children who would never see their parents again. Parents who had lost everything they ever loved. Scientists, artists, teachers. Farmers, all the knowledge and culture of humanity reduced to whatever they could carry in their desperate flight. "Sir, the Vorthok fleet is changing formation," called out Tactical Officer Kwon Min-jun. "They're positioning their planet crackers around Earth's equator, I think. I think they're going to split the planet in half." Dae-ho had seen the intelligence. Reports about Vorthok planet crackers. Massive ships equipped with gravitational manipulation technology that could literally tear worlds apart. They had used them on dozens of civilizations across the galaxy, always taking their time to study their victims before the final destruction. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim Dae-ho," he announced over the fleet communication system. "Prepare. 4-dimensional jump. We're leaving Earth's space immediately." The response was immediate and heartbreaking. Voices from across the fleet called out in protest. "Admiral, there might be more survivors down there. My family could still be alive in the soul bunkers. We can't just abandon everyone." Dae-ho understood their pain because he felt it too. His own brother had been in Tokyo when the first wave of Vorthok ships arrived. His sister had been working at the research station in Antarctica, he would never know what happened to them. "I know what you're feeling," he said, his voice carrying across all 12 ships. "But if we stay, we all die. And if we all die, then humanity dies with us. We are the last seed of our species. We have to survive." Dr. Ru Se-young, the lead scientist on the Dimensional Drive project, looked up from her console. "The experimental wormhole generator is ready. But I have to warn you, we've never tested it at this scale. We don't know where it will take us, or if all the ships will make it through intact." "Anywhere is better than here," Dr. Deho replied. "Activate the dimensional drive." The ship's engines changed pitch as the exotic matter containment systems came online. Through the viewport, space itself began to twist and bend as the wormhole generator carved a hole in reality. The opening looked like a swirling tunnel of liquid starlight, beautiful and terrifying at the same time, behind them. Earth convulsed as the Vorthok planet crackers began their final work. The Pacific Ocean boiled away in seconds, revealing the ocean floor before that too was vaporized. Continents cracked like broken glass, and molten rock sprayed into space in massive geysers. "All ships followed the Phoenix Dawn into the wormhole," Deho ordered. "Stay close and maintain formation." As the human fleet disappeared into the swirling vortex, Admiral Kim Deho took one last look at Earth. The planet's core was exposed now. It's a brilliant ball of molten metal that pulsed like a dying heart. For a moment, he could see the blue marble that had been humanity's home for millions of years. The oceans, the green continents, the white clouds swirling in familiar patterns. Then it was gone. Consumed by fire and alien technology. "We will remember," whispered Lieutenant Song Hoyan-woo from the navigation station, his hands trembling as he guided the ship through the dimensional tunnel. "And someday, we will return." The wormhole collapsed behind them, cutting them off from their dead world forever. But in the darkness of unknown space, 50,000 human hearts still beat with the promise of vengeance. 500,000 years had crawled by like an endless winter across the galaxy. It's a tiny human fleet that once fled Earth's destruction had grown into something the universe had never seen before. Millions of ships now drifted through the void, connected by quantum networks that spanned entire star systems. They were no longer the desperate refugees who had escaped the Vorthok massacre. There was something entirely new. Dr. Yoon Sejin stepped carefully through the bioenhancement laboratory aboard the massive generation ship Eternal Wanderer. Her legs, now crafted from living metal that responded to her thoughts, carried her silently across the sterile floor. Half of her face remained human skin and bone, but the other half gleamed with cybernetic implants that glowed with soft blue light. Her enhanced eyes could see across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, watching the energy patterns of the beings growing in the evolution chambers. "Chamber 7 is showing unusual neural activity," she observed, her voice carrying both human warmth and mechanical precision. The latest batch of enhanced humans floated in glowing tanks filled with genetic modification fluid. These weren't quite human anymore, but they weren't machines either. They were something in between, something better. The laboratory doors slid open with a whisper, and Commander Lee Jamin entered. His body had been completely rebuilt 3 centuries ago after a stellar radiation accident. Now he looked like a living statue made of polished chrome, but his movements held all the grace of the dancer he had been in his original human life. "Dr. Sujin, High Commander Choi wants a status report on the Navigator program," he said, his voice resonating from speakers embedded in his chest. "The deep space reconnaissance missions are reporting strange discoveries." Sujin nodded and moved to the central monitoring station, her fingers now equipped with microscopic tools. Interfaced directly with the computer systems. Data flowed through her consciousness like a river of pure information. "The Navigator strain is finally stable," she reported with satisfaction. "These new humans can perceive 11 dimensions simultaneously. Watch this." She activated one of the chambers and the fluid began to drain away. The being inside was humanoid, but clearly evolved beyond baseline humanity. Their skin had a translucent quality that seemed to shimmer with inner light. Instead of 2 eyes, they had 6, arranged in a pattern that allowed them to see in all directions at once. When they opened their mouth to breathe, Sujin could See that their throat contained organs that didn't exist in original humans. Navigator Kong Su-Hayan, can you hear me? Sujin asked gently. The enhanced human's multiple eyes focused on her, and when they spoke, their voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. I can see the ship's path through folded space, Doctor. The quantum currents are beautiful. Like rivers of light flowing between the stars. Commander Lee stepped closer, his chrome features showing something like wonder. How many dimensions can you perceive right now? Levin Su-Hayan replied, their head tilting in a way that seemed impossible for a human neck. I can see where we are, where we've been, and where we could go. The universe is so much bigger than we ever imagined. Across the laboratory, other chambers held different types of enhanced humans. The Forge Masters had hands that could break down matter at the molecular level and rebuild it into anything they could imagine. Their fingers ended in tools that looked like tiny galaxies spinning in miniature. The memory keepers had brains that had been expanded with quantum storage devices, allowing them to hold perfect memories of everything that had ever happened to humanity. Impressive work, Doctor, came a voice that seemed to speak from the very walls of the ship. High Commander Choi Junho's consciousness no longer resided in a single body. Instead, he existed as a quantum intelligence distributed across the entire fleet's computer network. But we have more urgent matters to discuss. A holographic projection materialized in the center of the laboratory, showed a detailed map of a distant galaxy sector, with thousands of red dots marking enemy positions. Our scouts have made contact with the Andorian sector, Choi's voice continued, now coming from the hologram itself. What they've found is ... interesting. The map zoomed in to show a massive star system dominated by enormous space stations. The structures were clearly Vorthok in design, all sharp angles and pulsing red energy. But something was different about them. They looked old, almost crumbling in places. The Vorthok Empire has grown fat and complacent, Choi explained. They control thousands of worlds now, but they've stopped advancing their technology. They believe they've conquered everything worth conquering. Sujin studied the readings with her enhanced vision, processing data streams that would have overwhelmed an unmodified human brain. They've forgotten about us completely. To them, we were just another extinct species, filed away in their databases. And forgotten. Navigator Su-Hayan floated closer to the hologram, their multiple eyes tracking movements that others couldn't see. They can perceive their patrol routes through dimensional space. They're using the same flight patterns they established 50,000 years ago. They haven't adapted to interdimensional travel at all. Commander Lee's chrome form began to vibrate with what might have been excitement. Our Forge Masters have been developing new technologies for centuries. Weapons that can unmake matter itself. Ships that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Vorthok have no idea what we've become. The hologram shifted to show recordings from the scouting mission. Vorthok ships patrolled their territory. In predictable patterns, their crews clearly bored and overconfident. The aliens themselves had changed little over the millennia. They still looked like walking crystals covered in bronze armor, still moved with the mechanical precision of beings who saw themselves as superior to all organic life. Look at this. Choi's voice carried a note of cold satisfaction as the hologram displayed a massive space station. They've built a museum dedicated to their conquests. And guess what's at the center of their trophy collection? The image zoomed in to show a familiar blue-green sphere suspended in an energy field. The Earth, or at least a perfect recreation of it, floated like a precious jewel among displays of other dead worlds, Sujin's remaining. Human eye filled with tears while her cybernetic implants began glowing brighter with suppressed rage. They kept our world as a trophy, souvenir of their genocide. The Vorthok have displays showing the primitive organic infestation they cleansed from that pretty blue planet, Choi continued. They have holographic recreations of human cities, burning. They show tours to their young, teaching them how efficiently they can exterminate entire species. Navigator Su-Hayan's 6 eyes all focused on the same point in space, seeing something others couldn't perceive. The dimensional currents around their empire are stagnant. They haven't explored new regions of space in hundreds of thousands of years. They're trapped in their own success. Memory Keeper Im Hyojin emerged from one of the completed enhancement chambers. her skull now enlarged to accommodate the quantum storage devices that held every human memory from before the Exodus. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of countless generations. "I remember the last transmission from Earth," she said quietly. Children crying for their parents as the cities burned. Scientists pleading for more time to finish the evacuation. Soldiers holding the line against impossible odds. Every scream, every tear, every final breath, I remember it all. The laboratory fell silent, except for the quiet hum of the enhancement chambers and the distant vibration of the ship's engines. Around them, the vast generation ship continued its journey through the void. One of millions carrying the scattered children of Earth toward their destiny, Sujin's cybernetic implants cast dancing shadows on the walls as she turned to face the holographic map of Vorthok space. Her smile was cold as the vacuum of space itself, carrying 500,000 years of carefully preserved human fury. "Then it's time to remind them what happens when you try to erase humanity from the universe," she said, her voice carrying both the warmth of human emotion and the calculating precision of advanced technology. "They wanted to study us before they destroyed us. Now they'll learn exactly what we studied while we evolved beyond their nightmares." The enhanced humans around the laboratory began to stir, their various augmentations responding to the promise of finally returning home, not to Earth, which was gone forever, but to the justice that had been waiting for 500,000 years to be served. Captain Lee Minho felt his consciousness slip between dimensions as his reconnaissance ship Asterisk Shadow Walker Asterisk phased through the quantum barriers surrounding the Vorthok stronghold. His navigator-enhanced brain processed 11 different layers of reality simultaneously, watching the massive alien fleet patrol their territory like mechanical sharks circling their prey. The Shadow Walker was invisible to conventional sensors, existing partially in folded space where the Vorthok couldn't detect it. Minho's 6 eyes tracked multiple energy signatures at once, while his enhanced nervous system processed data streams that would have instantly killed an unmodified human. After 300,000 years of evolution, stealth missions like this had become almost routine. "Captain, I'm reading massive gravitational distortions ahead," reported his co-pilot, Specialist Han Guion. Her body had been rebuilt with quantum sensors that could detect energy patterns across multiple dimensions. The Vorthok have stationed their entire home fleet in this system. Through the ship's main viewer, they watched as hundreds of Vorthok warships drifted in perfect formation around a central cluster of massive space stations. Each alien vessel was a nightmare of dark metal and pulsing red energy, their hulls covered in weapon systems that could vaporize entire moons. The largest ships were the size of human cities, their bronze surfaces reflecting the light of the system's twin suns. "Oh, look at the size of those planet crackers," Guion whispered, her voice filled with barely controlled anger. "Each one of those ships could destroy a world in minutes." Minho nodded grimly. The Vorthok Empire had grown enormous over the centuries, their dark ships harvesting entire star systems for resources. Wherever they went, they left nothing but empty space and crystallized debris. Thousands of civilizations had been consumed by their endless hunger for conquest. "Wait," Guion said suddenly, her quantum sensors detecting something unusual. "Captain, there's something else here." Massive structures hidden behind the main fleet. They're not military vessels. Minho shifted his perception to a higher dimensional state, allowing him to see through the camouflage fields that hid the Vorthak's secret project. What he saw made his enhanced blood run cold. "By the ancestors," Guion whispered, her face pale with shock. "Look at their trophy collection." Floating in the center of the hidden complex were dozens of massive museum ships, each one displaying the crystallized remains of conquered worlds. The alien vessels were arranged in a perfect spiral pattern, like a twisted galaxy of death and destruction. Each ship contained the preserved remains of an entire civilization, their cities, their art, their people, all turned into decorative displays for Vorthok entertainment. But there, in the center of the collection, was something that made Minho's heart stop beating. "Earth," he breathed, his voice barely audible over the ship's humming engines. The blue-green sphere floated in a containment field, perfectly preserved down to the smallest detail. Minho could see the familiar outline of the continents, the white swirl of clouds, even the tiny lights that had once been human cities. It looked exactly as it had on the day of the evacuation, beautiful and alive and utterly lost. "They kept our world as a trophy," Ji-Yan said, her voice shaking with rage. "They turned our home into a museum piece." The quantum archaeologist aboard their ship, Dr. Kong Sai-Yong, had been silent until now. Her enhanced brain could process historical data at incredible speeds, reading the energy signatures left behind by ancient events. Now she looked up from her station, her face twisted with horror. "Captain, I've been analyzing the quantum echoes from the museum collection," she said, her voice steady despite the terrible news she was about to deliver. "Earth's destruction. It wasn't strategic. The Vorthok did it for sport," Minho felt, his enhanced consciousness recoil from the implications. "What do you mean?" "The energy patterns tell the whole story," Seo-Young continued, her fingers dancing across her holographic interface. "The Vorthok High Command was bored. They had conquered so many worlds that destroying another civilization had become routine, so they turned it into a game. The display screen filled with data streams and energy readings that painted a picture of unimaginable cruelty. The Vorthok had placed bets on which human continent would be destroyed first. They had made wagers on how long the evacuation would take. They had even competed to see who could cause the most creative destruction. 8 billion humans died for their entertainment, Seo-Young said, her voice now cold as the vacuum of space. "Our entire species was nearly exterminated because they were bored." Minho's enhanced nervous system began processing the information at superhuman speeds. The rage building inside him was older than the stars themselves, a fury that had been carefully preserved and refined over 500,000 years. Around him, the ship's quantum systems began to resonate with his emotions. It's the very fabric of space-time, trembling with his anger. "There's more," Seo-Young continued, her archaeological scans revealing layer after layer of horrific details. "They have holographic recordings of the final moments." The Vorthok commanders were laughing as they watched human cities burn. They were placing new bets on whether any humans would survive the initial bombardment. Guillen's quantum sensors detected movement in the museum complex. Captain Vorthok tour groups are approaching the Earth display. They're bringing their young ones to see the primitive organic infestation they eliminated. Through the ships. Enhanced viewers, they watched as groups of young Vorthok moved through the museum ships. The alien children looked like smaller versions of their parents, walking crystals covered in bronze armor.
Ow.
Their movements mechanical and precise. They gathered around the Earth display while their teacher explained how efficiently their ancestors had cleansed the galaxy of inferior organic life. "They're using our genocide as an educational tool," Minho said, his voice barely containing his fury. "Teaching their children that this is what happens to species that dare to exist in their galaxy." The Shadow Walker's quantum transmitter came online, its signal capable of reaching across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Minho knew that, in a few moments, every human ship, every colony, every enhanced consciousness scattered across the galaxy would receive his message. "This is Reconnaissance Unit 7 to all human forces," he broadcast, his voice carried by quantum waves that could cross the galaxy in seconds. "We have found them. We have found the Vorthok Empire in the Andorian sector. And we have found what they did to our world." The signal spread outward like ripples in a pond, reaching navigator ships exploring the deep void. Forge master colonies building impossible technologies, and memory keeper archives preserving the history of lost Earth. Across the galaxy, enhanced humans stopped what they were doing and listened to Minho's words. "Earth was not destroyed for resources or territory," he continued, his voice now carrying the weight of 500,000 years of patient fury. "Our world was destroyed for sport. 8 billion humans died because the Vorthok were bored. They kept our planet as a trophy and used our genocide to entertain their children." In the depths of space, human ships began changing course. Generation vessels that had been drifting peacefully through the void suddenly erupted with activity. Forgemaster shipyards began producing weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Navigator fleets started calculating jump routes that would bring them to the Andorian sector from every direction at once. "The time for hiding is over," Minho announced, his words echoing through the enhanced consciousness of every human survivor. "We have evolved beyond their understanding. We've become something they cannot imagine. And now, we are going to show them what happens when you try to erase humanity from the universe." The Shadow Walker began its journey back to human space, carrying with it the coordinates of the Vorthok Empire and the proof of their ultimate crime. Behind them, the alien museum ships continued their slow orbit around the crystallized remains of Earth, unaware that their victims had returned from the dead to collect a debt. 500,000 years in the making. High Admiral Bei Sungmin stood motionless in the command center of the dreadnought Vengeance Incarnate, his enhanced form casting long shadows across the quantum steel floor. Through the massive viewport, he watched the greatest war fleet in galactic history assemble. In the dark space between galaxies, ships materialized from folded dimensions like predators emerging from deep water, their hulls gleaming with metals that shouldn't exist in normal reality. The Vengeance Incarnate itself was a monument to human evolution and fury. 5 kilometers long and forged from the compressed matter of collapsed stars, its hull could phase between 11 different dimensions simultaneously. Weapon ports lined its surface like the eyes of some ancient god, each one housing technology that could unmake entire solar systems. "Admiral, the storm of memory has just arrived from the Outer Rim," reported Navigation Commander Park Dongwook, his consciousness interfacing directly with the ship's quantum sensors. His body had been rebuilt 3 centuries ago after a dimensional accident, leaving him more machine than man, but his loyalty to humanity burned brighter than any star. Through the viewport, Stoonman watched as the massive generation ship Storm of Memory phased into normal space. The vessel was ancient by human standards, one of the original evacuation ships that had fled Earth's destruction. Over the millennia, it had grown like a living thing, new sections added by each generation until it resembled a small moon more than a spacecraft. "How many souls aboard her?" Stoonman asked, his voice carrying the weight of 500,000 years of command. 2 million enhanced humans, Admiral Park replied. "All of them descendants of the original refugees. They've been waiting their entire lives for this moment." Around the Storm of Memory, smaller vessels swarmed like angry insects. Fighter craft that could exist in multiple realities simultaneously darted between massive battleships, whose weapons could tear holes in space-time itself. Each ship carried the genetic memory of Earth's destruction, passed down through countless generations of evolved humans who had never seen their ancestral home but dreamed of it every night. "Status report," Sungmin commanded, his enhanced consciousness processing data streams from across the fleet. Tactical coordinator Im Hai-jin materialized beside him, her holographic form flickering between multiple quantum states. She had volunteered for consciousness transfer 2,000 years ago, becoming a living computer program that could coordinate fleet movements across entire galaxies. "All fleets are in position, Admiral," she reported, her voice echoing from speakers throughout the command center. "We have 12,000 primary battleships, 50,000 support vessels, and 8 million fighter craft. The reality bombs are armed, and the consciousness viruses are loaded into the quantum torpedoes." Sungmin nodded, watching as new ships continued to arrive from every corner of the galaxy. Navigator vessels that looked like living crystal formations, phased in from dimensions the original humans could never have imagined. Forge Master construction ships arrived carrying weapons so advanced they existed as pure mathematical concepts given physical form. "What about our infiltration units?" he asked. "Excellent news, sir." Hajin's hologram smiled with savage satisfaction. "Our dimensional infiltrators have compromised key Vorthok installations across 17 sectors. The enemy has no idea. We're coming. They still use the same defensive patterns they established 50,000 years ago. The humans had indeed learned to fight like ghosts over the millennia. Their dimensional phase technology allowed them to slip through Vorthok shields and armor like they weren't even there. Enhanced human agents had been infiltrating alien space for decades, studying their enemies and planting quantum viruses in their computer networks. "Show me the target analysis," Sungmin ordered. The command center filled with holographic displays showing the Vorthok Empire in perfect detail. Their worlds appeared as red dots scattered across multiple star systems, each one defended by massive fleets and planetary shield generators. But the humans had found weaknesses that their enemies didn't even know existed. The Vorthok rely entirely on conventional physics, explained Chief Science Officer Dr. Cho Min-young. Her enhanced brain processing tactical data at superhuman speeds. They never developed interdimensional technology because they believe reality has only 3 spatial dimensions, can attack them from angles they can't even perceive. Sumin studied the enemy positions with the patience of a predator. The Vorthok had grown complacent over the centuries. Their empire spanning thousands of worlds, but their military thinking stagnant. They had stopped evolving because they believed they had already achieved perfection. Admiral, incoming transmission. From Memory Keeper, Lim Su-ben, announced Communications Officer Yoon Jae-ho. The ancient woman's image appeared in the center of the command room. Her consciousness now distributed across multiple quantum-enhanced bodies scattered throughout the fleet. She was one of the last humans who remembered Earth directly, her enhanced mind preserving every detail of humanity's lost homeworld. "Admiral Su-min," she said, her voice carrying the weight of countless generations, "the fleet commanders are requesting the final briefing before we begin the assault." Su-min nodded solemnly. "Activate the holographic display, Memory Keeper. Show them what we fight for." The command center darkened as Su-bin activated the quantum memory banks. Suddenly, the entire room was filled with the image of Earth, as it had been on humanity's final day. The blue-green world rotated slowly in the center of the display, showing white clouds swirling over familiar countenance and sparkling oceans that had once teemed with life. "This was our home," Su-bin announced, her voice broadcast to every ship. "In the fleet, this was the world where humanity was born, where we took our first steps into the stars, where we dreamed of a future among the galaxies." The display shifted, showing the Vorthok planet-breaker ships descending like mechanical vultures. The assembled fleet watched in absolute silence as Earth died before their eyes, continents cracking apart, oceans boiling away, the last desperate. Transmissions from the surface cut short by screaming energy. 8 billion humans died that day, Su-bin continued, her words echoing through every ship in the massive fleet. Men, women, children, others all of them murdered, for sport by creatures who saw us as nothing more than an entertaining distraction. Throughout, the fleet-enhanced human warriors felt their ancient rage stirring. Some had been born in the depths of space and had never seen a natural world. But the genetic memory of Earth's beauty and Earth's death burned in their enhanced consciousness like a sacred flame. "The Vorthok kept our world as a trophy," Su-bin said, her voice now cold as the vacuum of space. "They turned our genocide into a tourist attraction, used the death of our species to educate their young about the superiority of their empire." In the fighter bays of 1,000 ships, human pilots began powering up craft that could phase between dimensions. In the weapon departments of massive battleships, forge masters made final adjustments to reality bombs that could unweave the fundamental forces of physics. Across the fleet, 2 million enhanced humans prepared for the war they had been evolving toward for 500,000 years. "Every human warrior will witness this before battle," Su-bin declared, her image multiplying. "Across every screen in the fleet, they will know what we fight for. They will remember why we became what we are." Admiral Sungmin raised his hand, and across the fleet, weapon systems that could unweave reality itself began powering up. The space between galaxies filled with energies that had never existed before. Technologies born from human fury and refined by 500,000 years of patient evolution. "For Earth," he said, his voice carrying across every ship, every consciousness, every enhanced human heart that still remembered home. "For the dead," the fleet responded in unison, their voices creating a harmony that resonated across multiple dimensions. "For the future," Sungmin concluded, and the greatest war fleet in galactic history began its final journey toward the Vorthok Empire, ready to teach their enemies what happened when you tried to erase humanity from the universe. The Vorthok. Emperor the Smortis sat on his crystal throne, reviewing the latest casualty reports from the Outer Rim territories. His bronze-armored form gleamed under the harsh light of his war chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing the peaceful expansion of his empire. For 50,000 years, no force in the galaxy had dared challenge Vorthok's supremacy. The monthly harvest reports from Sector 7 announced War Commander Zektar, his mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. Another 3 star systems have been completely processed. The organic infestations have been cleansed according to protocol. Dex Mortis nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy was almost entirely under Vorthok control now. A few primitive species still clung to existence in the outer darkness, but they posed no threat to his empire. The silicon-based race had evolved beyond the need for conquest. Now they simply maintained order through systematic extermination of inferior life forms. Then the impossible happened. The war chamber sensors screamed with alarm as massive energy signatures appeared throughout Vorthok's space. Not approaching from outside, simply materializing inside. Their most heavily defended systems like ghosts passing through solid walls. Emperor Zektar's voice cracked with panic. Human ships are appearing in orbit around every major world. Simultaneously, they're phasing through our defensive barriers, as if they don't exist. Dex Mortis rose from his throne, his crystalline mind struggling to process the impossible information. How is this possible? Organic infestation was eradicated eons ago. We destroyed their pathetic world ourselves. The answer came as a transmission that bypassed every communication filter, every encryption protocol, every defensive system the Vorthok had developed over millennia. The voice spoke directly into the quantum substrate of their consciousness, forcing itself into every Vorthok mind across the galaxy. We are the children of Earth. Admiral Bae Soonmin's voice echoed through every alien brain like thunder from the depths of space. We are the survivors of your sport. We've evolved beyond your understanding, and we have come home to collect what you owe us. On the main display, the Smortis watched in horror as human ships materialized around the Vorthok homeworld. These weren't the primitive vessels that had fled Earth's destruction 500,000 years ago. These were nightmares-made real ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their hulls forged from materials that bent space-time itself. The war that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Vorthok fleet, supposedly invincible after countless victories, found themselves fighting enemies they couldn't even see properly. Human ships phased through their armor like it was made of paper, striking from dimensions the aliens couldn't perceive. Fire everything, Dex Mortis commanded. But his weapons passed harmlessly through space, where the human ships had been microseconds before. The human response was swift and terrible. Reality bombs detonated throughout the Vorthok formation, creating holes in space-time that swallowed entire battleships. The massive alien vessels didn't just explode, they unraveled from existence. Their atoms scattered across 11 dimensions simultaneously. Emperor, the consciousness viruses are spreading through our networks, reported Chief Technician Mordux, his bronze form sparking with electrical damage. They're showing us memories. Suddenly, every Vorthok mind was flooded with the experiences of their victims. They felt the terror of the human children as Earth burned. They experienced the desperate love of parents trying to save their families. They lived through every moment of agony from every species they had tortured over the millennia. The silicon-based creatures had never experienced empathy before. The flood of organic emotions nearly drove them insane. Captain Osang-hee materialized. Inside the Vorthok capital city, her enhanced form shifting between dimensions as she moved through the alien architecture like a living shadow. Her body had been rebuilt for war, arms that could phase through matter, eyes that could see across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, and a consciousness that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Target the central power core, she whispered into her quantum communicator, voice reaching her strike team across impossible distances. Make them understand what it feels like to watch their home die. She planted quantum charges throughout the city, each device designed to unravel the molecular structure of Vorthok architecture. The aliens had built their capital from living crystal that had grown over millions of years. Now that crystal began to scream as human technology tore it apart at the atomic level. In the Imperial Palace, Thixmortis watched his empire crumble through the great viewing portals. Human fighters danced between his defensive fleets like deadly butterflies, their weapons creating cascading failures in reality itself, entire. Star systems were going dark as humanity's evolved technology systematically dismantled 500,000 years of Vorthok civilization. "Please," he broadcasted desperately to the human fleet. "We surrender? We didn't know your species would return. We didn't know you could evolve." Admiral Sungmin materialized in the throne room, his form flickering between his original human appearance and something far more advanced. His eyes held the cold fury of the void itself, and when he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You destroyed our world for entertainment," he said, his words causing the crystal walls to vibrate with harmonic resonance. "You turned our children into trophies, used our genocide to educate your young about your superiority. Did you think we would simply fade away into the darkness?" Thexmortus fell to his knees, his bronze armor cracking under the pressure of Sungmin's enhanced presence. "We were wrong. We can coexist. We can share the galaxy." "You had 500,000 years to learn coexistence," Sungmin replied, raising his hand. "Instead, you chose to perfect the art of extinction. Now, you will understand what it feels like to face something that evolved beyond your nightmares." The reality around the Vorthok Emperor began to unravel as Sungmin's consciousness interfaced directly with the quantum structure of spacetime. Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology, Thexmortus. It was our memory. We never forget. We never forgive. We never stop becoming more than we were. The crystalline being's form began to dissolve as the fundamental forces holding his matter together came undone. His final thoughts were of impossible terror as he realized that the tiny organic creatures, had dismissed as primitive insects, had become something that existed beyond the laws of physics he understood. Across the galaxy, the last of the Vorthok Empire collapsed into quantum foam. Their conquered worlds were freed, their slave species liberated, their museum ships scattered to the cosmic winds. The great displays of destroyed civilizations crumbled into dust, releasing the crystallized remains of countless worlds back to the stars. Where the Earth trophy had been preserved, the humans built something new. Using technology that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, they created a perfect memorial, a recreation of their lost world that was somehow more real than reality itself. The blue-green sphere rotated slowly in its quantum field, forever beautiful, forever home. As the human fleet prepared to return to their eternal wandering among the stars, Admiral Sungmin stood before the memorial. His enhanced hand passed through the quantum glass that held the memory of home, and for a moment he could feel the warm soil of Earth beneath his fingers. "We remember," he whispered, his words carried by quantum waves to every human consciousness. "Scattered across the galaxy, and we have avenged you. The debt is paid." The stars themselves seemed to pulse in acknowledgement. And across the universe, humanity's evolved descendants looked up at the night sky with satisfaction. Justice had finally been served, and the galaxy was free to grow and dream and live. Without the shadow of the Vorthok Empire hanging over it, the children of Earth had come home at last. The end.